So you're thinking about moving to the greater Philadelphia area. I would pump the brakes a little bit because there are some negatives living here. It's a little bit of a culture shock for people, especially coming from New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, Florida. That's where most of the people who move out of state, in-state are coming from. It's not all unicorns and rainbows. There are some negatives, and we're going to break them down for you right here. All right, my name is Tom Toole, and if you are new to the channel here, make sure to click subscribe up below, tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know what it's like to live in the greater Philadelphia area. The team and I, we get calls, emails, text messages constantly from people just like you that are thinking about moving to the marketplace here, moving to the greater Philadelphia area. So if you're doing that, and whether it's a week, a month, a year from now, schedule a call, send us a text message, send us an email, whatever works so we can help you with your move and make it a smooth and easy one. So the first thing people don't like when they move here and they talk about is the weather, especially for the folks coming from California, Florida, and Maryland. Not so much New York and New Jersey. It's actually a little bit of a break here. We get very cold winters. We're talking about single-digit temperatures sometimes. Doesn't snow often, snows a few times a year maybe, but it gets cold. You go outside, you want to run back in. So cold weather is a real thing. And then when you get to springtime, like we've seen the past couple of years, there's really not that much spring weather. It's still pretty cold when you get into March, April, and May. It really starts to warm up. I mean, we've seen this past April temperatures in the 40-degree range. That doesn't sound like spring to me. I don't know about you. And March, every year we get one of those bizarre March snowstorms that happen and a lot of rain. It's a very temperate climate. Then when you get to the summertime, you want to talk about humidity. This is a very humid place to live. You can walk down the street and literally start sweating. So for someone like me that wears a jacket and tie every day, it gets a little hot in the summertime. So you want to make sure you're kind of aware that humidity is going to be a real thing. Fall, beautiful. That's probably one of the positives I would say about living in Philadelphia is the fall weather where it cools down a lot. Throw the football, watch some Eagles games, all the stuff people like to do, check out college football on Saturdays, and then right back into that brisk, freezing cold winter that lasts December, January, February. So a lot of people aren't ready for that kind of weather. They don't like the seasons. They want warmth. They don't want to deal with being cold or it's snowing or it rains a lot in the spring too. That's something a lot of folks don't realize, and that humidity in the summer. That's one of the negatives. Now, I look at it as a positive. I like having all the seasons, going sledding, all that fun stuff with your kids, going down the shore in the summertime, which is really close. But some people, they just don't like having all those seasons. So that's definitely the first con out there for living in the greater Philadelphia area. The second one, and this may not be for everybody, taxes. And specifically, if you live in the city of Philadelphia, there is a city wage tax. And in 2022, the resident tax is 3.8398%. So let's call it almost 3.9% of your earned income. It's a city wage tax that you have to pay directly to the city. So by living in the suburbs, you get almost a 4% raise automatically. And a lot of that's going to depend where you work. Because if you work in the suburbs and live in the city, you don't have to pay the city wage tax. So that's caused a lot of people to maybe want to move out of the city. The non-resident city wage tax, if you work in Philadelphia and live outside, is 3.4481%, so about 3.5%. So there's a little bit of a break there. That's money right out of your pocket. It comes off your income, and it's something you've got to be aware of. So the state income tax, this to me is a real positive. It's 3.07%, which is lower than New Jersey, New York, and California. Florida, they don't have a state income tax, so obviously people move here for different reasons, but those places in particular, 3.07% is one of the lower state income taxes that are out there. So it's really if you're living in Philadelphia or not, and you want to be mindful if you maybe want to move to one of the surrounding counties, like along the main line, Chester County, Delaware County, maybe you want to move into Montgomery County or Bucks County, be wary of the city wage tax because it comes right out of your paycheck. So that's a real negative for a lot of people, and it's something you got to be aware of. Liquor laws. So it is hard to buy beer, wine, and alcohol in the state of Pennsylvania. It's loosened up a lot over the past 15, 20 years. Previously, you had to go to only a state store to buy wine. You still have to go to a state store to buy hard alcohol. And beer distributors and now like grocery stores and some delis can carry 6-packs and some smaller stuff. But if you want to buy a case of beer or a spiked seltzer, if that's your thing, whatever it is, you've got to go to these larger stores. You can't go to a grocery store and buy it because not every grocery store has it. Can't get it at a gas station, which is not the case in New York and California and Florida. It's all a lot different. Jersey's a little similar. It's a big difference than the rest of the country. They've got some very antiquated liquor laws here, and it just makes it kind of a pain in the butt to go out and buy a bottle of wine if you want to have a nice night in or whatever you're going to do. So that's a real negative for a lot of people, and it's kind of shocking because they have these Quaker laws here that are a little outdated, and a little might be an understatement. So that's a big con for a lot of people that are looking to move into the greater Philadelphia area or into Pennsylvania. The fourth con is going to be traffic and parking. If you've ever tried to drive into the city on I-76, you are in for a nightmare. This road is constantly under construction. It's always jammed. It's built between a river and a mountain, so it can never get bigger. And it's the major artery, especially coming from Chester County, coming from parts of Montgomery County, coming from parts of Delaware County, depending on where you are. I-76 is a nightmare. It is really difficult to commute in and out, especially the folks that go into the city to work and go back to the suburbs. Parking downtown is also an issue. You got to pay for parking everywhere. Street parking's non-existent, and you could even classify that in some of the smaller towns around the greater Philadelphia area. Places like Westchester, parking's a disaster. Media, parking's really tough. Along the main line, it's better depending on where you are. They have some additional parking that they built in some of these places, but around mainline train stations, so like Ardmore, Wynwood, Berwyn, Devon, any of those train stations along that Paoli-Thorndale line, it's really tough to park. So if you're a commuter, if you can walk to the train, that's great. Getting there and parking is really a problem. And traffic along I-95, again, that's another disaster, and that comes through Delaware County, and that's kind of both north and south. You see that on the Bucks County commute on the northern part of the city. So traffic's, it's a problem. It's not fun. And then when you're cutting through some of the, if you're trying to get downtown and you're coming from some of the suburban locales, you've got to cut through West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. They're not the safest neighborhoods. So traffic can really be an issue for a lot of people, and you really got to factor that into your commute. And again, with the city wage tax combined with traffic, that's a real negative for a lot of people that want to move here and want to get in and out of the city. One of the positives is that if you live in certain places, taking the train in is very easy. There's not enough train lines. They only hit a couple of the suburban markets, so you got to drive to the train station, park, then take the train in. It's a whole issue getting into town. So traffic is definitely a problem. And there's other roads too, like the Route 30 bypass or Route 100 out in Chester County. They get jammed up all the time. Route 202 is another one. Traffic is constantly jammed up because we're a densely populated area. So if you don't like traffic, this may not be the best place to live. The flip side is there's a lot of great attractions and a lot of positives that come along with being densely populated and having development. Parking and traffic are definitely one of the negatives of living in the greater Philadelphia area. The fifth one, and this could be a positive for a lot of people, including myself, the homes are older here. A lot of homes right outside the city or in some of the neighborhoods that are really close to the city, especially along the main line or in Delaware County, parts of Montgomery County, parts of Chester County, they're older properties. We've got homes that are built, some in the 1800s, some in the 1900s, 1950s. It's a very different type of home that you get here versus some of the other places that people move from, like Texas and California and Florida, where it's a more contemporary, newer construction. The positive there is they got a lot of charm, a lot of character. You can't build homes like that anymore. They've got stone, they've got timber, they've got all these great things. So if you aren't okay with older home maintenance, the greater Philadelphia market may not be for you. There are some places you can find new construction. The downside to that is if it's new construction in an older home area, the property taxes are going to be super high because they reassess at the time of build or they assess at the time of build. So that's another thing you got to be very, very mindful of. Now, the flip side is if you move a little further out, you get into like Chester County, areas like Downingtown, Westchester to a certain extent, out in Coatesville, parts of southern Chester County, even right here across from our office along Edgemont, there are newer homes. They just tend to be really pricey because there's not a lot of them. A lot of the land is already built on here, so if you're looking for a newer home, you either got to move a little further west or be ready to pay a premium dollar. We just had a client we helped that was moving from out of the city and they wanted to move to the suburbs, and they decided to move into media as opposed to the main line because they were able to get a home that was a newer home at the same price point they would have paid for like a 1930s or 40s home that they had to renovate and redo. So you got to make decisions based on that. And that's one of the negatives, is that you do have a lot of older homes here. So if you're not an older home person, may not be the right market. Now again, the flip side is I love older homes. I see a lot of charm there. And if you're willing to do some work and renovate, they can be some of the best properties that are out there. And the sixth negative, and again, to me, this is a positive, but it's really a negative for a lot of folks, especially if you like getting around pretty easy. We talked about traffic and parking. Philadelphia's a big area. You've got Bucks County, Montgomery County, Chester County, Delaware County, and the city of Philadelphia. To get back and forth between all of them, it's a big marketplace. You've got 5 separate counties there, knowing that the city of Philadelphia is also Philadelphia County. It's a large area. So if you want to get around, it's going to take you some time. If you've got relatives living in Bucks County and you're looking to move to Chester or Delaware County, that's a long commute. You're talking at least an hour, if not more. So it's a big marketplace. Now, to me, that's exciting because there's a little bit of something for everybody. Some of the more rural areas can appeal to people. It gets rural very quickly here. You know, you're in Lancaster in an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes from the city, and you've got horse and buggies running out there, legitimately. So to me, that's exciting because they have a lot of everything, but it's a big metro market. It's the 5th largest, 6th largest metro market in the country, depending on who's doing the calculations, how you're grading it. So it's a big area with a lot of attractions. That may not be for everybody. I like the little bit of everything kind of feel, but that's a negative for some people, especially if they're coming from a smaller town. So we talked about some things here you just want to be aware of before you move to the greater Philadelphia area, and hopefully you got some value out of this video. That's all we're here to do, is get you informed, bring you up to speed, especially if you're moving in the next week, the next month, the next 6 months. We're here, we're ready to help you, so feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send an email, schedule a call with us here, and we can help you with whatever you need when it comes to moving to the greater Philadelphia area.